As I've been preparing for this up-and-coming series going through the Song of Solomon, I actually came across some videos that I made back in 2019, well before I'd even started this YouTube channel, covering the Song of Solomon. And so what I thought I'd do, just as a fun callback, is I'm sharing some of those videos with you, not because they're anything mind-blowing or because the quality's great, but just because it's kind of fun. And so here's the third video in this series, and it's just covering the second verse of the Song of Songs. Pastor David, I'm handing it off to you. Last week we were introduced to the song of all songs, the Song of Solomon. Today we're going to start seeing what it has to teach us. When it comes to the young couple that we're going to follow through the Song of Songs, you're going to see very quickly that they're an unconventional couple in the fact that they do everything just right. The woman and the shepherd boy that she falls in love with present for us the perfect idea of a godly romantic relationship. And we're going to see very quickly in the story that they waste no time in getting straight to the point. As the song begins, we don't see how they met, we don't get their first encounter, we don't get any cheesy pickup lines, we don't actually get to see whether or not they liked each other from the beginning or whether it actually took some time for them to warm up to one another. Rather, whenever we meet this couple, we actually see it at the moment of epiphany. The moment whenever the veil finally falls from her eyes and she sees her shepherd boy under a radically new light. And how does she respond? Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 2. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. She absolutely desires this guy. And is desire a bad thing? No, absolutely not. How we handle desire, however, is crucial. And a lot of the times we don't handle it in the right way. God created desire as a good thing for us. But a lot of the times we use it in a way by playing the game by our own rules, I guess you could say. And that usually leads to a lot of pain, heartache, and regret. But that's the beautiful thing about this song. We're going to see this young couple navigate the stages of desire, even from its early stages to utter perfection. And through their example, we're going to learn how to handle desire in an appropriate and godly manner. And right here, whenever she says that his love is more delightful than wine, the Hebrew word for love there is the word dod, which typically refers to the sexual kind of love. But they do not have a sexual relationship at this point, though her desire does long for that intimacy, even though she knows she cannot yet attain it. This is that first, briefest moment of infatuation whenever you look at this person under a totally new light, and you think, where on earth have you been my entire life? She sees this guy, she sees how he treats her, how he loves her, how he treats the people around him, and she longs for him. To be blunt, she longs to make out with him, but really, she just wants intimacy. And from this verse alone, we can learn 4 things about love. The first of which is that love is responsive by design. Take careful note of what the woman says. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. While the woman is the one who is initiating the song, the man is obviously the one who initiated the pursuit. What she is saying here is a response to what love he has already shown. Her love is reactionary to what he has already done. And the way the Bible puts it, that's exactly how love works. Her love is responsive to his love, and his love is a result of his internal character as well as something he saw within her that was worthy of pursuing. And that's the same way that it works between us and God. 1 John 4:19 tells us that we love because he first loved us. Our love is responsive to God's love, and God's love is a result of his internal character. And the reason God designed love to be responsive is because if love is responsive, it can actually feed off of itself. The more we come to know God's love, the more we come to love him. The more we come to understand God's love, the more we learn how to respond in love to other people. That's exactly why Jesus says that the 2 most important commandments are to love God and love others. Because if we can get those 2 commandments correct, then everything else will fall into place because love is responsive. And this woman in the song sees how this man loves her, and she responds in the only way that seems fitting to her, and that's to love him back. And that brings me to my second point about love. Love is recognized by devotion. Notice that she never has to specify who she's talking about here. She just says, your love is better than wine, without saying a name. Later on in the song, we will learn more about who this guy is and what about him makes her love him. But right here, she doesn't have to specify any of that. All she has to say is, your love. In her mind, there is no other guy that she could be referring to. She has eyes for him and him alone, and therefore she only has to refer to him as you and you alone. Who else could she be referring to? Love is recognized by devotion. And so if you want to know what you love most in life, ask yourself, what are you devoted to most in life? If you want to know whether or not you truly love God, ask yourself, are you devoted to him? Jesus says that if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And that's why the Bible places such a great emphasis on faith. Because just like a marriage, our relationship with God is rooted in faithfulness. It's the same in any relationship. If a man tells his wife that he loves her, but then goes and commits adultery, his love is discounted by his lack of devotion. This woman sees this guy. She recognizes his character, and she sees within herself that she has eyes for him and only him. And in that increased devotion, she also has this increased hunger for intimacy. And as a result, she cries out, "Kiss me!" And this brings me to my third point, that love is ravenous for depth. As I mentioned earlier, love feeds off itself. Love begets more love. True love, be that romantic or platonic, always longs to go deeper. If we love God truly, we're going to long to deepen in our relationship with him. If we love people truly, we'll long to spend more time with them, to care for them, to learn more about what makes them tick so that we can love them more. Love hungers for intimacy, and that's exactly what this woman is encountering with this guy. Prior to this moment, it would seem that she was aware of who this guy was and she was conscious of his character. But only at this moment right here does her desire reach the point where she can't help but sing. And when she does, it's bold and it's dramatic. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. And that brings me to my fourth point. Love is rooted in desire. Guys, tell me the truth. How would it make you feel if a girl wrote a song for you and that song started out like this? She desires this guy. She longs for his kisses and she longs for his love. Wine was considered the greatest delicacy of that time period, yet she says that his love is greater than that. You can figure out a lot about what you love most in life by searching your heart and figuring out what you desire most in life. The way that Jesus puts that is this: where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Your love for God is demonstrated by your devotion to him, but your devotion to him is a natural outpouring of your desire for him. It's the same way in any relationship. If you truly love someone, your desire will be for that person and not simply for your own gratification through that person. If you're simply pursuing someone because you like how they look, how they make you feel, or because you want to be intimate with them, I hate to break it to you, but you are not loving that person. You're lusting after them and you're actually idolizing yourself. True biblical love is selfless, gracious, and self-giving. And that means that love must be rooted in desire, but not desire for oneself, but desire for the other person. We should desire to give ourselves to that other person for their benefit, for their good, and ultimately for God's glory. That's what God did for us, and that's what we're called to do for others. And that's exactly what this woman in this song is doing. She sees this guy, she recognizes his love, and she responds to that love by desiring to return those same affections. And it's all rooted in desire. Now, to those guys out there watching this video, I know exactly what you're thinking. What on earth did this guy do to make this girl react in this way? And next week, we're actually going to address that question. But this week, I think we can actually begin to address it by noting how she described his love. Better than wine. Now, how can love be better than wine? Well, about 130 years ago, Charles Spurgeon actually did a sermon on this exact verse, and he actually mentioned a few things that I think are worth mentioning. Firstly, his love is better than wine because it can be taken without question. There's always going to be questions about wine. Some people will wisely say, stay away from it. Some people will foolishly say, drink as much as you want. And then there's still others who will say, drink in moderation. But biblical love isn't like that. There's no question about it. You can give and receive as much love as you want from a biblical perspective. Using the biblical sense of the word love, you can never actually love somebody too much. Because in loving them fully and endlessly, all you're doing is actually pointing them closer and closer to God. And this woman sees this guy, and he is not loving her with scarcity. He's loving her abundantly, excessively, unquestioningly. But that's not the only reason that his love is better than wine. A second reason is that love can be attained without money. From a biblical perspective, love is given by grace, free of charge. It doesn't cost anything. How many people have gone absolutely bankrupt, wasting their money, going out to parties and buying alcohol? But when somebody is loving more and more the way the Bible describes love, they just get richer and richer. Whereas the world loves people on a give and take, do this for me and I'll do that for you basis, that's not Christian love. Christian love is free of charge. It's undeserved. We love because God loved us. We don't love because people deserve it or because they'll ever deserve it, but we love because that's who we are in Jesus Christ. As the Father sent the Son in love, so the Son has sent us out into the world in love. As He is the God of love, who is love, so He has sent His people out to also be ambassadors of love, handing out love free of charge, without cost. As we'll see later on in this song, this woman does not feel that she deserves this guy's love. No, he freely gave it to her because that's just the type of guy he is. And as a response to his love, she wants to love him back. Another reason that love is better than wine is because you don't get tired of it. It's a statement of fact that even if you're eating the sweetest, tastiest substance in the entire world, eventually you're going to get tired of the taste. Wine was considered the greatest delicacy of their time period. But if you had wine every single day nonstop, eventually you'd get tired of the taste. But that's not the case with biblical love. Biblical love is better than wine because it never cloys the palate. When you taste this type of love, and even whenever you've had it to its full, it leaves you crying out for more, more, more. This woman, she'd already tasted and seen this guy's love. Yet she begins this song at the very introduction, longing for kisses. Another reason that love is better than wine is because it doesn't produce any bad side effects. Wine, if drunk in excess, can make you drunk, but true love in excess has a way of sobering you. Perhaps I can better explain this by going back to those 4 points that I made earlier. Love is responsive by design, but biblical love doesn't over-respond. It's not stalkerish and creepy, but rather it's gentlemanly in its conduct, offering itself freely, yet also content with the response that it receives. Love is recognized by devotion, but it will not devote itself to something that is impure or unrighteous. Biblical love is not a feeling, it's a choice. You choose what you're devoted to. You don't simply drunkenly fall in and out of love, as is the message of modern secular romance. Love is ravenous for depth. It always longs to go deeper, but it's better than wine in the fact that it's sober in its judgment. True love will not go too deeply, too quickly, and it will know where to establish boundaries to help both parties involved and to glorify God. The intoxicating kind of drunken love that is entirely sensual and feeds off self-gratification, that is not biblical love. And then, of course, love is rooted in desire, but those desires are not self-seeking. When one overindulges in wine, it's because they lack self-control and because they're seeking pleasure simply for themselves. But that's not biblical love. Biblical love flows out of self-sacrifice, humility, and selflessness. It's not life-sucking, but actually it's life-giving. And that brings me to my last point about this man's love. It was better than wine because of the joy that it produced. I have personally never had wine, but back in the ancient world it was a symbol of joy. Biblical love, however, surpasses all joy. This woman sees this man's love, she sees the type of guy he is, the way that he treats her, and she cannot help but burst into song, because that is biblical love. It surpasses all joy and it makes you just want to sing. But the question still remains, what on earth did this guy do to make her respond in this way? You're going to have to come back next week to find out. Until then, keep a smile on your face and don't let anybody steal your joy.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
All right, Future David here once again, and I've got to say, once again, I actually am pretty happy with how that video came out. It was better than I expected going in. And one thing is that whenever I was watching it again, I was kind of wondering how I was going to stretch out this one verse into 13 minutes long of content. And I've got to say that I'm actually pretty happy with how it happened because I actually went a lot more in depth than I remember having gone. And if you just want to know my heart behind Bible study, this is the stuff that I love. I love going in depth into scripture, and we don't really get to do that as much on this channel. I'm about to explain why. But I believe that you can go that in depth on every single verse in all of scripture because I think there is so much there and there are so many implications, and I think that this video was a kind of good just study of that where you get to see all the different implications you can get from one verse at a time. The reason I don't do that as much on this channel currently is mainly because I've realized that you kind of have to be very careful in how you do that. And really, it doesn't do any good to go in depth on one particular verse until you've understood the section or the context or just the book as a whole. Because you have to kind of filter out certain ideas and certain thoughts in light of where the book is heading and what the book is about and the cultural context and all that stuff. And in this particular video, I don't think that I did anything wrong or dangerous. I think I probably would have just handled it differently, because I do think there's a time and place to go that in depth on a verse, but I don't know if you can immediately just do that right off the bat without knowing the big picture of the book. And so what I'd probably do if I were doing this again is I would actually do a big overview of the book, and maybe I'd even do a chapter by chapter analysis of it. And then after having done that, I'd go back and once again go back to this depth, mainly because there are certain implications that you can arrive at only because you know where the book is heading. And that's just how I would handle things differently doing it now. But that being said, you probably don't care about all of that stuff that I'm saying right now. I just wanted to share that with you because this is what I'm reflecting on whenever I'm looking back at these past videos of myself and thinking how I would do things differently nowadays and how I've kind of changed in my efforts and my methods of communicating the Bible. And so, yeah, there was the third video, and believe it or not, I only actually have one more of these because the series that I was wanting to do kind of got cut short because I just got busy. So I've only got one more of these for y'all, but I will release that for y'all in the next few days. So thank you so much. Be sure to keep a smile on your face. Don't anybody steal your joy, and I will see y'all later. Bye.